On today's episode, if you want to call these episodes, I am joined by Dr. Javaria Farooqui, who received her PhD from the University of Tasmania and works as an assistant professor at Comsats University, Lahore. Now, her research primarily focuses on popular culture, film and television, romance, post-colonial critique, among several others, as one naturally does as an academic. So I want to officially thank you for taking the time out of your day through the time difference and being on this episode with me to talk with me.
It's wonderful. Thank you so much.
Of course. So I guess to start off, my first question, and this is what I was curious about, was given where you are in your career right now, and everything that you've been through, that you've experienced, how do you understand or conceptualize success or being successful as a woman, in South Asia, in Pakistan?
You cannot really be seen as a successful woman in Pakistan, right? In South Asian context, because there would always be something that people would be looking for, right? Because if you would be so the blueprint for a successful woman would be somebody who is very obedient, number one. And it's not necessarily a bad thing, right? So somebody who is definitely, the first requisite would be somebody who is following the rules of the society. And then that person should be, general idea is that a woman should be following the rules of the society, and she should be, now the narratives are changing. After, while following the rules of the society, the woman should be making something of herself as well. So if the woman decides to be, if a young woman decides to be, I'm just speculating it from the perspective of a young woman, if she is looking towards success, if she would like to succeed in life, she can very well choose the path of being a housewife, of being a good daughter, and then being a good wife. That was the straightforward, clear plan that South Asian, most of the lower middle class and middle class South Asian families, they followed for a very long time. And I think it was very clear and straightforward. So then it evolved to something like, let's say, the women, a few decades ago, it evolved to women with slightly more education, right? So it's like my older khalas, my aunts, when they were of the marriageable age, the idea of a woman who had a graduate degree, right? An undergraduate degree, so a bachelor's. So she was like a very sought after person in the marriage market, right? So then that evolved to women getting more education, and things got complicated. And for my generation, things have become more complicated, became more complicated, and they are becoming more complicated as we are moving along. Now we want housewives who have a career and who are also additionally working as uh, proverbial glues to keep the society and keep the family structure together. So there's a lot of pressure for me, let's say, for keeping up with the standards of success that the society has marked for them. So if you would see a woman who is like woman in academia, for example, right? So if a woman would be successful, she would have the model of success for an academic naturally would be somebody who has a good career, who has excellent publications and everything. But then again, that academic is going to, the first question that female academic is going to face would be that, is she married? Where is she married? Whom is she married to? What is she doing? Does she have kids? What does her husband do? And the questions, they do not end. So if, for example, if the first question that most of the time people asked me about my doctorate when I got my PhD, most of the time the questions were like, "Oh, how did you do that? Oh, wow. What about the questions were never about me. It was never a plain congratulations, right? In most of the cases, it wasn't a plain congratulations. It was more about my marital relationships, the number of kids I have or I would like to have, or whatever, right? So it's never about a woman is, so for a man, it would be straightforward. wow, you have been to that conference, you have been invited as a keynote. Wow, you got so many fundings, you got so many grants. And for a woman, it would be like, oh my goodness, you have such a wonderful family who allows you to travel alone. Right. So the questions and the ways of appreciation of success and the parameters for success, they're very, very different, right?
One thing throughout my education that just like kept frustrating me was you have to get married when you graduate. You will be
Oh
married.
God. Oh God.
Oh,
Oh
like
my goodness. That was the guiding what should I call it? The guiding anguish, the guiding frustration, the core question whenever you talk to anyone,
anyone.
anyone, practically anyone. And the reason why women were interested in reading Regency historical romances, why we have this such strong community, is because when they're reading Regency historical romances, they're like, we are in the 18th century.
Yeah.
We haven't moved.
We literally
For
have to-
you would like contemporary romances with people having relationships and moving on with their lives. And
Yeah.
for years, no, we are stuck in the 18th century
Yeah.
because we have these old relatives, elderly aunts, etc., and random elderly aunts like the dowagers and duchesses and
Yeah.
everything, right? So just like balls, we have our weddings, and everyone will be looking at you, and the first question they are going to ask is, "Oh, when is she going to get married?" And when the girls are married, they are going to ask. The first question would be, "So when is the good
Yeah.
news?"
Yeah.
So the questions for women, they're never going to end, right? Whereas men just need to wash their faces and show up.
Thought that it would actually make sense to name it like wasted goods. In Pakistani society growing up, it's like, what do you call it? If you're not like married by like 22, you're too old. You're off the market.
Okay. I'll start saying things about that. Yeah. So it's not, I think, I used to think like that too, that you'd be off the market, you're useless and everything. But now it's like the more I've thought about it, the more I've heard things, the more I've talked to people, the more I've grown up. I've realized that it's like, it's not about your being discarded or accepted. It's more about looking at your existence, how the narrative frames your existence as a reproductive organ, right? Rather than an individual.
Right.
So it's like why you are off the market and everything, it's related, really, really related to your productivity, your the function of reproduction that is related to women, right? So you're off the market because you won't be able to reproduce, you won't be able to have kids, right? That's why we have the entire industry, the beauty industry, which caters to making women looking very young and having hairless bodies, younger bodies, right? Petite, hairless, very fair, very fragile.
I think like the amount of times, not even just like people in my family, but my relatives or whatever have been, you should do something about your hair. And I'm like, why?
I mean, when I travel, and it's been always a thing with me, right? Nowadays, not so much because I've been like involved with exercising and everything. So before I adopted a very active lifestyle, like 2 years ago, I always had acne, right? So a random person, a naib qasid, right? You know about naib qasid, the PN, etc. In the PN's orderlies, right?
Okay. Oh, okay.
Orderlies in the universities, right? So there was this orderly in the university, and he just entered the room where I was. And I was like, okay, you need something? And he was like, no, ma'am, can you just come outside? I went outside, and he was like, I have a remedy, and I have a wazifa for your acne, right? And the only thing I asked him was that if I was a man, would you have had the courage to ask an assistant professor to come outside her class and give her,
Your class.
yes, exactly. That was
Why?
like so bizarre because, it was like unbelievable that this person has the audacity just because he was a man, right? And I was a woman. Otherwise, I told him that you have bald men, you have overweight men, and you have men with so many problems. Have you knocked on their classes, at the door of their classes, and called them outside to give them, advice about how to have a beautiful skin and all that, right? But he was like, oh, no, madam, you shouldn't be minding that because it was all in good gesture. I would like you to. I mean, why would you like me to look beautiful? Last year, I was invited as keynote at International Association for Popular Romance Studies conference, and I was going to Mexico. And the immigration officer at Lahore airport, he stopped me and he was like, "Why are you going alone, madam?" And I was like, "Because I'm invited as keynote." And oh, okay, so why? Why? And I was like, because I'm an academic and this is what we do. And I was instinctively, I stopped myself from saying that, it is International Association for the Study of Popular Romance Fiction, because that would have scandalized him more, right? Antagonized him, rather. So I was like, because there's this conference, oh, you teach, okay, but you shouldn't be going alone. I was like, I always travel alone. I do have a history of traveling alone. Okay, but next time. And then I controlled myself and I was like, I don't want immigration problems. I don't want immigration
Yeah.
problems. I don't want immigration problems. And I said that yes, next time I take some, you have men in your family. And I was like, yes, I do have men in your family, alhamdulillah. And then I said some alhamdulillahs and mashallahs and astaghfirullahs to, just tell him, to give him the cue that I am a very good person. And then he was like, okay, fine, be careful next time. And I was like, yeah, yes. So you can be a successful person. You would be very happy with yourself. But then again, somebody is going to, a random dude who hasn't even completed his high school. He does have the power and the courage to call me out of my classroom and comment on the condition of my skin and share with me remedies for acne so that I can look more beautiful, right? And I did ask him that what would happen if I would look beautiful to you? And he was like, no, it's general understanding because women are supposed to look beautiful, right? And this is something that can never, ever, ever happen to a successful or not even successful academic, male academic in Pakistan, right? There's this tradition that in academia, which I find really, really annoying. So, what happens is that when men, if they have taken admission into PhD programs, immediately they would be called doctors, right? Whereas women with whole freaking degrees, obtained degrees, completed doctorates, they would always be called madam, right?
Right.
Most of the time.
Yeah.
So you would have to say that, it's Dr. Javaria, right? It feels so odd, and you would feel like, putting yourself out there, you would feel obnoxious, you would feel showy, but then you learn that this is how you would at least take out some of your anguish because you are not recognized. You would always be a madam.
There's honestly a lot of what you shared. There's a lot that I picked out of like the stories that you mentioned. I kind of still see a lot of like the rishta culture, the arranged marriage culture, the rishta aunties, like the stuff that they say is like the demands are like, yeah, an educated woman, but why should she be educated? Because they don't allow the girl to like work after being married. Like she's expected to have this education now and then just sit at home. And even if it's not something that the girl wants, it's because marriage is just seen as like this ultimate end goal. Like your family forces you into it, or like you have to do it because you think that that's the only option that you have.
It is the only option that you have, right? Are no ifs and buts about it. My PhD project and then afterwards, other projects they have. I love emphasizing the voices of women because most of the time when I'm talking to women about Urdu popular romance reading and everything, I will be talking about that too, with reference to storytelling and everything. My research involves lots of interviews with women, and the thing that is emerging now is not just that you would like an educated woman and you would like want her to sit at home. No, it's not that simple anymore. So now you would like to have an educated woman and you would like to for her to have a career, but while having that career, she is supposed to have a perfect trad wife sort of existence as well, which is very visual. So she should be having, and I know women who are doing all that and more. It's a very common thing. And you would see, so my colleagues, you would be talking to them, and they would keep on emphasizing that, this is not what we should be doing. Our first and foremost duties are towards our children, towards our home. In academia, in Pakistani academia, I've seen that it has very negative impact. Number one, a large group of women, they do believe that research or academic job, etc., it's something secondary. So if you're treating your career as something secondary and you still want benefits from it, right? It does involve some research practices. It's not that I'm blaming the women or
No, of course.
anything, but
Yeah.
it's just like I'm stating the fact that it's like, so the men would be taking it, as a condescending sort of a favor for the women, that, they should be, oh, she is married, she is having kids, I mean, just put her name in the publication. You can just pay for it. Who writes articles on their own now? So if you would be publishing a paper,
Yeah.
over here, you are supposed to have your supervisor's name as the second author. So that has promoted the culture where academics are more and more relying on their students' work, because they have established this narrative that it is something, your career is something which is very secondary to your identity as a woman, as a housewife, as somebody who is constantly looking for proposals. If you're not married, you should be looking to get married, because that's, as you have said, it's the end goal. It's not the end goal. It's like, it's
Expected.
the religion.
Yeah.
It's the religion.
Yeah.
It's the way. It's not even a way of life. It's the religion that we have built for ourselves. And if you would move around in the markets, just go to a middle class or lower middle class market, and the merchandise that is selling the most would be related to weddings.
Mm-hmm.
You are not supposed to, a person would be very, very poor, but they are supposed to have good clothes for weddings. They are supposed to have very fancy weddings. And I mean, because I did stuff for my PhD on weddings, so I've learned things about wedding expenses that are astonishing, and everything is justified. Wedding industry, beauty industry, everything is thriving because of this idea that women have to get married. That's the religion. You have to get married and you have to have children. That's the next best thing possible. The basic human question would be, if something is so fragile,
Yeah.
why is the entire society bent upon, just putting that fragile thing together? So she was sharing her story, and the person doesn't want to earn, because the jobs that he was getting were not up to his standard. So she was the sole breadwinner of the family, and she was taking care of the children. And there were so many problems, financial problems, emotional problems, and he was cheating on her as well. He was having extramarital affairs, and she had been going to homes of the women with whom he had extramarital affairs and talking to them about it, right? Rather than confronting him. And he was also policing her wardrobe all the time, that, but she used to stop me, and she was like, I love wearing jeans, and I haven't been able to wear jeans after my marriage. And I was like, excuse me, why? So she would be like, he doesn't like it, and in Urdu, unko pasand nahi hai. And I would be like, okay, fine, I'm going to stop myself. But then again, what happened was that for 3 days she would be telling me the most toxic stories, and on the fourth day she would be like, I think there's hope. you know he brought that particular food for the breakfast, and he's not that bad, right? So for my mental health, I stopped listening to all the narratives. So I just wished her very good luck. I look at all these stories as sociological constructs, because I think they're very rich as you're working on them. And I'm so glad for this project. And I think that they are very rich repositories of information about the ways in which communities and societies they work, right? Because you are supposed to cling to that thin string of hope. You're cling to that for your dear life, because that's what is sustaining your image as a good married woman in the society. And that image is so important for women because they are conditioned.
I think sex plays a really big part in this, just in the sense of what sex is supposed to be. It's supposed to be nothing for women, and it's supposed to be the way I was legitimately taught about it growing up, which I had so many questions about, was like, your husband will only care for you if you have sex with him. And I was like, what? That doesn't seem right. I don't think that's how emotions and relationships
And
work.
you're not supposed to have sex, but you're supposed to have children as soon as possible, preferably in the first 2 months of marriage, etc.
Yeah.
Right? So going to the conversations, I felt so bereft because I did not take the ethical approval for questions about sexuality from when I was conducting that my PhD research project, right? And women participants in my focus group interviews, when they wanted to talk about certain things, I did not take it there, right? So because I could not take it there.
Mhm.
So, but the thing is that they related so much to the constrained sexuality, the taboos, etc. In Regency historical popular romances, because they explicitly, to quote one of things, I think it's in the book as well. Everything is not as racy as it is in contemporary romances. People are not. In contemporary romances, people are jumping in and out of the bridge, but in Regency historical romance is something very similar to us, right? So you have to, it's love after marriage if you are fortunate. Sexuality, we are a long way from talking about sexuality or the idea of desire for women. We can just only talk about it in the form of love most of the time. And as somebody who is talking about romance, so most of the things, when we are, what we are calling romance is not romance, right?
Right.
Not exactly romance per se. I've written about those toxic Pakistani dramas. I think the article would be coming out soon. I would definitely share it with you
Oh, absolutely.
because we have this genre of new genre of Pakistani dramas, which is sort of like a spin-off of the dark romance genre, because you would have this hero who would be drunk and who would be getting out of the car, played by mostly Danis Timur, or actors like him, or there are 3 to 4 the horse men of this genre, and they would be like, they would be falling at love in first sight, and the heroine would be like, she would be chased, she would be dragged, she would be abused, and there would be this very remarkable romantic music playing um, when she is being harassed, right? Literally being harassed. So it's romanticizing. So it's like it's a repetitive fantasy for women because they would like to associate to the power in the person of that hero, right? Because that's the power they are never going to have.
Yeah, because we're still living in a state where you have to rely on a man for everything.
Yeah, you have to rely on a man because otherwise, even with a man, sometimes you are not safe. So, most of the women, if you talk to them, women, when they go out of Pakistan on their own, mostly for studies, right?
Mhm.
So, the first thing that they are going to report would be that we can walk.
Yeah, that's what
Right.
happened to me
The-
too.
and that's the first and most bizarre experience of every woman you would ever talk to, right?
Yeah.
So the first thing she's going to say is that I felt so light
Yeah.
because nobody is looking at me.
Yeah.
And it should not be a privilege if I mean there would be students, male students in my feminist theory classes who would be saying that, everyone has rights, everyone has status. And I was like, okay, fine, good. Dressing up as I'm dressed up, even with the dupatta and everything, right?
Mhm.
Just walk from this point to the Tokonya's big point, right? Another point, right? Just
Yeah.
walk. And then we'll see how you would feel as a woman. It's like the recognition is just not there.
And even on topic of going abroad to study, like even a majority of the perception that you get from like the older generation or like the men of the older generation when we talk about your own daughter going abroad, it's mostly I think okay, I'm gonna say this in Urdu and then I'll translate it. What I've heard people say is वो इस्तेमाल हुई होती हैं.
हाँ,
या वो
इस्तेमाल
बेकार
हुई होती है, used goods, women with, so everything is related to the morality of women, right? Yeah. Every act that is a simple act, it's somehow related to your morality. It can be the acne on your face, it can be the way you dress up, the way you drink. I remember there was this because I mean I haven't done anything. I wish I did, but I'm a very I have this history of being a very goody two shoes person. So, but I do love candles, and I did have a matchbox in my office, right? So, there was this event, and I got the matchbox from my office, and then some of my male colleagues, they were talking about the fact at some other platform that, people of English literature, yes, they are so fond of smoking. And I thought that, okay, fine, good. Who is smoking? And then I realized after like 2 to 3 times they mentioned at different occasions, I was like, oh my goodness, they're talking about me. Oh my goodness, I would like to correct them because I'm not that cool. They're so wrong. I would be the last person who would be that cool. But yes, thank you for adding to my reputation. So even the simple act of having a matchbox for the candles, because my office, we have like a public construction, so my office is like not ventilated properly, and when I'm working I need fragrances, etc., scent, a very strong scent of coffee and other fragrances, etc., like the scented candle. So but that scented candle thing, uh yes,
That's
it has been
ridiculous.
translated like that. Yes,
That is ridiculous. I'm baffled.
yes, you would be baffled by all the questions. I have a student, like a very dear student, and she got divorced, and you'd be amazed at at the amount of gossip, not the amount of gossip, uh, the kind of stories that were circulated about her, that were circulated for her, things that were said to her face. There's this common saying that the bar is so low
It's in hell.
for yes, it's down in this
Mm.
drain. It's like in the sewer, right?
Yeah.
Anyone who is not burning their daughter-in-laws alive is like a good case study of good in-laws. Yeah. So I'm so sorry for being so dark.
Oh no, this is
Dark, but this is how things are.
yeah.
So I was talking to some readers of Urdu popular romance fiction, and they have so much internalized misogyny, and they have internalized all the structures of patriarchy more than readers of English popular romance fiction, because of course because of the surroundings of the geography. A reader who is a woman who has the luxury of reading Anglophone popular romance fiction for as layer reading practice, right? She is moving in different spaces. She is used to different spaces. She is coming from circles of privilege, right? Whereas a woman who is reading Urdu popular romance and like actual storytelling that is happening for women in Pakistan, right? So the Urdu popular romance reading culture, most of the women, they are more tuned to the structures and the patterns that patriarchy has set for them, right? So they would be telling they would love to go and they have to wait to get the latest edition of Shua, Khawateen Digest, Kiran, Pakiza, etc. Because the markets, they are not suitable places for women. They love going for shopping, they love going to markets, but they would be, and then I made sort of a video for one of the conference as well, because there would be men selling those digests who are supposed to be for women. So they would be degrading them, that they are reading crap. So everything that is related to women, women's storytelling in Khawateen Digest, Shua, Pakiza, all those magazines for women, right? It is considered crap. Why? Because when women are talking about their problems, when women are talking about their dreams and hopes and fantasies, etc., it is supposed to be a demanding thing, right? It's not supposed to be something purposeful. Whereas when men are going to talk about it, it's supposed to be panchayat. It's supposed to be a high form of wisdom, right? So the differences are extremely there when we are talking about storytelling. So if I look at the popular narratives of women, I mean, when you would be reading those stories, you would realize that you are actually getting a reflection of the cognitive processes. Not just the cognitive processes, like the way cognition is being structured for women in a certain way, right? And it's always so interesting to read some stories. They would be talking about feminism, definitely, because it has the conversations about emancipation, the conversations about hope, the conversations about career. They have infiltrated the traditional structure of the society, but in a very, very careful way.
I think this also reminds me of a conversation around this happens on the internet a lot, but it's that anything that women like will always be hated or kind of marked down as like, oh, teenage girls are into it, whether it be music or film, and that brings me
Yes.
to like the entire genre of rom-coms.
The genre of rom-coms, yes, the entire genre of rom-coms globally, it is derided. Why? Mostly because it's women's pastime. Yeah, their support system, it's their escapism. It's helping them in a variety of ways, and the fact that it is the most money making, most beneficial, sort of like monetarily most important genre.
It's portraying men as like consensual beings who are morally correct.
It's a cliche that men written by women are the best, right?
Yeah.
So and most of the time they do not exist, but still, I mean, specifically, but the men written by Pakistani women authors, they do exist, right? They are
Right.
around us all the times because they are like the hero. Sometimes you'll be reading a hero in the novels of like one of the popular romance genre romance writers, and I don't want to sound so I don't want to do a feminist analysis of it, but still, I mean, there would be men who would be doing the most toxic things, who would be policing women, policing the heroines left, right, and center. But then there would be the heroes, right? They would have this attitude, and that attitude is so appreciated.
There's this viral interview. I don't remember when it was from. I think it was around some Eid within the last 5 years where this woman, like, I think she's in the Rawalpindi area. She's doing interviews, and a guy who's like trying to be like very,
Yeah,
like,
who tried to cover her.
yeah.
Yeah,
He
yeah.
tried, he just like,
And that's something so common,
yeah,
right? That's something so common. And it's just if you have not faced it, it's because you are not moving in those areas, right? I that reminded me that interview. It reminded me of the time. So I was a fine arts student as well, right? So I used to go to this very famous, huge park in Lahore. That is the Jinnah Garden, where it has this Jinnah library as well, and the trees are beautiful and everything. So a part of my for my fine arts landscaping. So I used to go there for landscaping, right? And my father was always with me. So he was always walking around where I was sitting, right? But then one day, suddenly, an elderly man about the age of my father, probably older, so he came along out of the nowhere. He just appeared, and he took my scarf lying on the ground because I was making the sketches, and he placed it on my head. And he specifically said that, women, daughters, they look good when their heads are covered, right? And I remember the thing that I remember most about that funny, traumatic incident was that my father was like running towards us with like anything, right? I haven't ever seen him run with such a fast speed because there was this, random dude covering my head. And, he just had the audacity, and he had the, not just the audacity, he had the physical freedom, the liberty to just touch some random teenager sitting in the park,
right.
right? And you can imagine the kind of power such men would have over women, over young girls, and you have daily stories of horrible crimes happening. You're one step away from being harassed. You're one step away from being dominated, and so on. Yeah.
It's also all this is under the premise that you are like you are allowed to touch a random girl or
You're
woman
allowed to do that. Yeah.
because you're like, oh, like I'm a good religious man and I am just teaching the
Yes,
right
exactly.
thing by the book. When actually, like, if you are a good religious man, you wouldn't be touching or looking at anyone like that.
No, 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 no. And it won't be some random girl would not be a problem,
Mm.
right? But there are, so I do have like again it's something a very stark when I was talking about my father, so that reminded me. So my father was in ICU,
Mm.
and I was sitting outside the ICU, and I remember I was talking to my aunt in US, and I was crying, and that was when some dude, he was like doing things that he shouldn't be doing to his anatomy. And that was the most horrible case of harassment that was happening right outside the ICU. And I remember while crying and while talking to my aunt, I just looked around myself, right? What should I do with this? So I reflect upon it as the kind of multitasking that I was doing, right? So I would be thinking about everything on earth that was important. And then I would be thinking about also finding something with which I could hit him, right?
Yeah.
And when I started looking for some piece of stone or a brick, etc., I did find a half brick. So then he sort of like went away. So that's the kind of situation that you can face, right? And these incidents are like I'm recounting them. I'm talking about them as somebody who has the privilege, who has the social capital
Right.
of living in a very safe society, or of moving in circles where it is common for women to be seen without men, or in they can dress up the way they would like to. Not exactly, but still with much more freedom than women in lower middle class.
Part of what I'd like to talk about as well is like the way all of this kind of transfers down through like generational trauma in a way, because it's like stories that your mom tells you and her mom
Yeah.
told her and before that. So part of a really big part of it is just the way that women see themselves and their bodies and other people's bodies, and like how everything, if God forbid, if anything happens, it's the woman's fault.
Always the woman's fault. Yeah.
And it's like,
There's no denying it. There's no other narrative. There is
yeah,
no other narrative. Every other narrative that talks about the harasser or the abuser or the tormentor, etc., every other such narrative is mostly restricted to social media and to some very niche circles, right? So you would have, I know extremely high educated men who have the most misogynist
yeah.
views you would ever hear.
And even I've tried having like the victim blame conversation at home, and like somehow I do need to acknowledge this. No amount of conversation is going to open up someone's mind if they're not open to it. And I think part of it speaks
Mm.
to everyone has experienced this to the extent where I don't know why the normal became the woman will blame themselves so they don't blame their husbands for doing horrible things to them and with them. So victim blaming became a thing where you're like, no, like obviously if he cheats on me, it's because of me.
It's because of me. So victim blaming and about women, how they are growing up. I mean, their relationship with their bodies and their sexualities and their own self, right? Their images of their own self. So it's like in patriarchal societies, I think generally and specifically in the context of Pakistani societies, you are supposed to storytelling itself. It inculcates, it promotes, it kinds of continues the legacy of fear that women are supposed to grow up with, because women are supposed to be very careful about everything that is happening to them, because they are responsible for everything that is happening to them. They are responsible for everything that is happening to other people as well.
Mm-hmm.
So if you are the daughter of the family, and if like so in our family, in our cultures, so it's the kind of grooming that you get from a very early age, that you are the one who is supposed to help with the house chores. You are the one who is supposed to set the table, right? There are, yes, families are changing the narratives, and people would keep on saying that. But because I'm teaching at a public university and I have like more conversation with at the grassroots, not exactly at the grassroots level, but still more conversation in different social stratas, etc. So I know that that progress is very minuscule. It's like it's almost nothing, right? If you're looking at the broad picture.
I think like the home environment is a part of that too, because there's a reason why women feel freer outside of their home.
I think the matriarch,
Yeah.
the women, because of their, not just because of internalized misogyny, internalized because of their internalized fears as well for their daughters, right? So they are more afraid for their daughters because they have been through all those traumas and they have faced things, right? And they know what is outside out there for their daughters, right? So that is why they keep conditioning them from a very early age. They do not condition their sons, they condition their daughters more, whereas the sons are going to have more exposure, they're going to go out, they're going to know about things.
Yeah.
And the daughters, they are the best place for them, as one of our previous at a very high administrative position in this very good recognized public university. I won't even mention the gender because it would make the person very clear. So the person stated that, you know, given everything, we should be kind to women who are women in our faculty who are so distinguished, and we should be kind to them because they have taken this courage to get out of their homes, whereas we all know that the actual and real place of a woman is at home. So I still have no idea whether it was an appreciation of the female faculty, or it was sort of like telling them that you are out of your place, right? General stereotypes, or
Yeah.
the stereotype with reference to successful women, women who are working, women who are earning, is that the real blessing, what we call barkat in Urdu,
Yeah.
right? So the barkat is always going to be in a man's hard earned income, right? So even if a woman is earning, her income is supposed to be taken as the secondary. Her career is not supposed to be acknowledged, right?
Yeah.
As I keep on saying that if Dr. Javaria was a man, she would have been so much respected.
Yeah.
Her time would have been valued.
Yeah.
And yeah,
And that exposure or the access to exposure really speaks a lot, because I unfortunately would say I was very naive when I left home for the first time when I started my undergrad, and there was a lot that I had to I I have, like, mixed feelings on it, because in a way I feel like if I had been, like, even just a little aware of how cruel the world can be, there were things that I would have, like, been more careful about. I would have been more careful
Yeah.
about, like, men in some way, where I would have, like, been able to identify can kinda signal towards a decent person and an indecent person. And I think,
I think it's always going to be a difficult thing to
yeah,
practice of yeah.
true, like,
It's not something you would learn even at a later,
yeah,
even if you're going to grow old, right? So it doesn't really matter, in my opinion.
I think so. Maybe
You can be more aware,
yeah,
but I mean, most of the time, how are you going to fix the parameter in such a complicated society like ours, right?
yeah,
So with reference to storytelling, right? So you would be so while for example, just imagine a scenario where everyone would be sitting and telling stories. And I had this recent experience where there was the news of this TikToker, Sana Yusuf. She was murdered, right? Because she said no to,
yeah,
and I think she blocked of somebody who was stalking her, and that person, he killed her. Um, so that news was playing on the television, and everybody apart from two people from a very, very highly educated, in that very highly educated mixed gendered gathering, apart from two people, and one was me, right? So apart from those two people, everyone, those highly educated individuals of, I mean, with Some of them were married, some of them were not married, some of them had kids, some of them had daughters, and everyone was a majority was of the opinion that women should not be on social media. Women should not have been making videos in the first place. Even like for many of them, they weren't saying that they shouldn't be doing because they are women are not allowed to. They were framing it like, you know how Pakistani society works, right?
Yeah.
So you shouldn't be doing things in such a society, right? And the blame fell on the parents because the parents allowed their young daughter to make TikToks, right? Which they shouldn't have done. And, it was ultimately the fault of the parents and most importantly, the fault of the mother
Yeah.
because she allowed her daughter uh, to make TikToks, which ultimately led to her death. And it should serve as an example for all the girls who you shouldn't be doing such things because the society is so cruel. And I pointed out that, it's these kind of storytelling. I actually talked about it, right? Now that I'm remembering it, I use the exact words that this kind of storytelling and this gossip, these narratives, they are building the foundation for so many more murders
Mhm.
because women are not getting out of they're not getting divorces. I know a class fellow of mine, she was about to be burned alive in her own kitchen because the husband was gay and they married him off. And yeah, he had no idea what to do with his wife when she started asking questions. He tried to burn her. The doors were locked, and she called her uncle. She did not call her parents because if she called her parents, her mother would have asked her to stay there. That was the irony of the entire situation.
Yeah,
Yeah.
someone I know was told the same thing when their in-laws were very, very like abusive and verbally abusive. The father was like, "If you can leave your son behind, leave." But that's like kind of tying it to what I was saying earlier. Like that exposure to being outside is like I think says a lot because I see like my younger cousins, and I see like the daughter like maybe she's around 10 and she's already being told to like wear like something underneath and like even I was taught that like your bra strap shouldn't even be visible, which is kind of ridiculous
No, it's like
considering.
they are grooming school. Okay, I have so many traumatic experiences of growing up in a school which was like being taught in a school. So mine was like sort of like a good grooming school,
Yeah.
Crescent in Lahore. So we are like Crescent. It used to be back when I was studying. It used to be very famous for it's like so uh, like it's grooming for girls and so we used to have this regular checking of the undergarments, right? There were teachers and we used to show one strap of our bra and the outline of the corner of our panties sometimes, right? I think twice or thrice in a week or something like that, right? So that they are going to make sure that all our underwear is very, very clean, right? And then the idea that if your bra strap or if your slip is showing, then you are on I mean, it wasn't even mentioned because it was a good grooming school, etc. So it wasn't mentioned that it's going to be like not in the name of religion, etc. per se, clearly, but it was like it's so uncultured, so unsophisticated. You're not supposed to have that. Yeah.
Okay. That's I
And
didn't
then you
know.
would have no, it's so interesting. And again, during the coursework, not sorry, the coursework, the field work, right?
Mhm.
So during the field work, I was waiting at a bus stop, and at that bus stop, in the buses, if you would be traveling at the local buses, there would be so the front seat is usually reserved for the women, right?
Right.
In the local buses.
Yeah.
So in the local bus that I was traveling, right in front of the ladies' seat, right? It was written clearly ladies' seat, right? And then right in front was written that women who do not cover their heads, um, they are the fodder of they are the fodder of hell. And not only they are the fodder of hell, but the men in their family, they are going to be dragged to hell by the hair of the uncovered the women whose heads are uncovered, right? And I still remember the kind of fear that I felt for my uncovered head self, right? Because I was like, okay, fine. Why? Who asked me to have this sort of adventure for? Like, why did I do that, right? Because it was a clear indication that this is the category of women. So nobody would like to be reminded. It was a reminder for all the women in sitting in the ladies' seat that this is how you should be dressed up. Your head should definitely be covered. Otherwise, you are the foreigner for hell. So when I was studying in Punjab University, I used to cover my head, and it became a habit in the second year. Why? Because it was so much more safe,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not your personal choice. I know so many. I had it's not that I'm speaking against it, and I think I need to establish that you have to covering up yourself is not an option for the majority of women in Pakistan,
Mm-hmm.
because men nowadays, you would see, you would be taken unaware, right? Because there would be those very educated postdocs sitting right next to you in a faculty meeting, and they would be saying things like, we should have a society with rules like the ones in Afghanistan. We should have a simpler society. They are very clear about women's education and everything. I mean, yeah, and then they would look at their female colleagues and they would be like, nothing against women's education. And I would be like, okay, fine. If that wasn't against women's education, then what were you thinking? And then they actually, one of them actually once clarified that, women should have education because our religion focused on education. But we should know, everyone should know their place. Where, so when they would be saying everyone, they would be actually meaning women, right? Because if everyone knew their place, you wouldn't be talking such crap.
Yeah. I didn't know there were people saying that.
Yeah,
Oh my
they do.
God.
They do. They say that. They say that. They judge you. They look at you, and I'm so glad about the only tiny rays of change that I see around myself, my in my immediate circle, or in you hear about certain things, and you hear about women who have gotten themselves out of toxic relationships. But still, again, the majority of the focus of the storytelling is turning women into good compliant organs,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
They shouldn't have any, let's say, power over their sexuality. Well, not power, I would say recognition of their
Yeah.
sexuality, right? Recognition of your sexuality is not a thing. It is something that I think we won't be able to talk about for very, very long time.
Yeah.
But recognition of their own identities is something which is at stake right now.
Yeah. I think, like, honestly, my, like, biggest success over the last 4 years has been, like, radicalizing my mother in some ways, because she went from, like, someone who used to tell me to be ready and that if there's a proposal, they're gonna marry me off in college, to just
Yeah,
to being the woman who's like, Don't even bring up a boyfriend to me, you're never getting married." And I'm like, "Great, because that's not happening,
yeah. Yeah.
so just relax."
So, and that's where the hope is coming in, I
Yeah.
think.
Storytelling wasn't even, like, maybe the main thing that did it, but a part of it was just, like, her getting to see me become a person of my own
And
from my
I
intellect.
think again, it is in many ways connected to storytelling, because you start listening to different stories,
Right.
stories of women who are doing stuff other than getting married, right?
Yeah.
Whose purpose of life is not getting married. I think, yes, storytelling still has a lot to do with that, because when you're listening to stories
Yeah.
of women doing things, women going places, and women who are still not killed, right? I think that gives a lot of courage to mothers, to
Right.
matriarchs, that, because they never had any options, right?
Yeah.
So storytelling is showing them options, that there are other cases,
Right.
there are other women out there who are, making choices and they're still alive.
I
So
think
that is.
it also becomes like kind of like non-verbal storytelling, because even hers just seeing me being able to like buy a guitar and teach myself was her being like, I've always wanted a piano, I could never get one, and you did this.
Yes,
I was
yes.
like, yeah.
And I think that's a very important way. That older set of women, it's living through their daughters. And again, there are ways, the number of the women who are living through their daughters' happiness and freedom, etc. Again, that number is very limited because women have not allowed themselves to be happy. Looking at your questions, I was thinking about a recent study I'm doing on. So I collected interviews for and data from women who are going to gym. So we have this recent gym culture, but it is all related to the idea of aging, right?
Right.
So they would like to age better. And all the gym going middle class women, their mothers, they never moved, right? They had very less mobility because, again, the narrative was that if you're going to go to gym, you're going to develop muscle.
Right.
Muscle is supposed to be very unfeminine, etc. Right?
Yeah.
So it's going to give you the look of a man, and again, another myth is that if you're going to work out, then you're going to mess up with your menstruation, you're going to mess up your ovaries, you're going to mess up with, basically, again, everything falls down to reproduction, right?
Yeah.
So, and then again, also the idea that women are going out for something that is for them. They're not doing it for their family, they're not doing it for their parents, they are not doing it for their children, they are not doing it for the general public, they are doing it for themselves, if they're going to the gym. So that is still not considered very good in middle class, at least. So the culture was always there. The gyms were always there, but that was for a very select elite. That elite is still safe from all the comments, but the way it has infiltrated into the middle class and lower middle class, now those women, they are having, even when they have the resources, even when they have the money to pay for, let's say, 10 lakh gym membership or club membership, etc., still nobody in their family, even their very happening Gen Z kids or the Gen Alpha kids, they are not favorable, looking favorably at the kind of freedom they are going to
Yeah.
have. They have with their bodies and all that stuff.
Because even the gym body, like a natural, organic kind of like body, is not what you see on the internet or what is perceived as like the ideal type, you know? Like you're not meant to be bone skinny. You're supposed to have a belly and
You're
organs.
supposed to have, yes, you're supposed to have a beautiful structure, like you're supposed to have a Barbie structure
Yeah, which just
without the sexuality that is there in the structure. So
right.
you're supposed to have sexuality, but you're not supposed to have it.
Yeah, it's supposed to be hidden.
Oh, yeah. Hidden and used for, yes, for the entertainment of one particular individual who is going to decide what you should be doing with your life. I had regarding what you were saying, I
Yeah.
had an interview with, about the beauty, let's say, the latest beauty trends
Yeah.
um, for women, right? And the beauty parlors. And the owner of the beauty parlor, she is a very beautiful, unmarried woman. And she shared that her clients, right? They would look at her and they would be like, oh, what beautiful color of hair. You're so pretty and everything. And they would be like, what's the point of all this beauty when it's being wasted? And I was like, why is it wasted? Because she was like, because I'm not married. So my beauty is wasted. What's the purpose of all this beauty if it's wasted? And that was something that really, really stayed with me for a very long time. Because if you're beautiful, you have a beautiful body, you are taking care of yourself, you have a successful career, all of that is wasted if you are not married.
This is kind of like connected to just like objectification, sexualization of the body, where obviously all of these things that women around you say create like a negative image of yourself. But at the same time,
Yeah.
if you yourself say that your self image is negative, then the response that I hear a lot, why? Like, are men not giving you enough attention for you to think that you're pretty? And I'm like, why is it connected to men? Why can't it be connected to stuff that women around me say all the time?
Because A very important part of our conditioning in patriarchal society is that you're supposed to have the idea of men, the idea that men, people, everyone is looking at you, right? It's ingrained into you. So it has to be everything related to the, we are living for the male gaze, right?
Yeah.
We have to protect ourselves from the male gaze. We have to be there for the male gaze. We have to adorn ourselves for the male gaze. We have to live for the male gaze. We have to, define our identities according to the male gaze.
Last kind of like theme to touch on, and then I'll take us towards like the final, like
Oh,
a bit more scholarly questions that I have that were like
yeah.
the last three questions. Um,
Yeah.
but on that topic of exposure, I think again what I see like with my younger cousins is like you are seeing the female, the mother or the sister be normalized as be at home and even at home cover yourself, and the only people allowed to be outside of the home are boys. So even when I see these like videos, these reels on Instagram that are like romanticizing life in Pakistan, and you're like, oh, like the culture is so beautiful, the community is so beautiful, every single clip you don't see a single woman. And that's why like it's
That's
like, any, like, international students, like, boys that I know are like, "Oh, Pakistan would be, like, the perfect life for me." No international like, I haven't met a single Pakistani woman who has said that about, like, wanting to live back home like that, but, like, the men are just not
they
able
would.
to they're not able to
Really.
empathize it, and it's
So,
just teaching boys what's normal.
I remember there was this I was called for an interview by an educational channel. I think back in 23, I think. Yeah. So the interview was supposed to be about, so it was televised interview. There's a recording for it. I've forgotten the name of the channel, but it's so one thing he asked me was like, he suddenly made it about feminism, right? I don't know why he got the vibes, probably because I don't know. Still, but he said that, why do you think we still need to talk about feminism? Because women have all the rights. Women are everywhere. Now I think men are supposed to be the ones who should be fighting for their rights. And I asked him that I'm so grateful that I had that came to my mind, because I asked him that when I was coming to your studio, from the gate, from the parking, till over here, I have like passed through all your studio. I've met people, and there wasn't a single woman around.
Mhm.
So you call this presence of women everywhere. You call this, how many women you are looking, how many women are working in your studios? How many women can be here? How many women are supposed to be here? Is it normal for your channel to have women working? And it was like, no, we have, yes, I get your point, but yes, there are women around. And I was like, just think about the percentage of those women who feel safe working in a studio, even when it is a very educational channel and everything. And now just imagine an entertainment channel and think about the women who would be working there,
Mhm.
right? I mean, just think about all the questions that you are taking around. And yes, of course, a woman would never be romanticizing it. There's this new drama of a very famous actress, Ajay Lily, going on. And I was just talking to my mother about it, that it's so unreal that a woman, a very pretty, beautiful woman like Sajal Ali, with her curled hair all open, etc., dressed up as an Italian chef, uh, has a roadside restaurant, not even restaurant, a roadside dhaba on a road to in Pakhtunkhwa in KP, right? So it's like next to impossible. So in KP, you have all those banners. So if you be traveling to northern areas for recreational purposes, they do allow tourists to wear whatever, tourist women to wear whatever they want, but still there would be all those posters, all those banners everywhere telling women to respect uh, the traditions, the local traditions, and to cover themselves up, right? No way. Like the glamorized uh, portrayal of this woman who is so, who is running a business on the roadside.
This is actually a
It's not
question
possible.
like I had a bit of a discussion on this in like my previous interview as well, but it was upon like upon this like representation of stories that are seemingly unrealistic, but give you a look into what life, what could, the possibilities of what could happen, as opposed to
Yeah.
the same stereotypical stuff that shows the really, really
Yeah.
bad stuff that just keeps like normalizing the bad stuff. And it's like this view of
So
like, what do you think about that unrealistic portrayal? Like, do you think like its
it is
existence on
definitely giving
television?
hope. Yes.
Yeah.
I would say that it should be there as ray of hope, etc. But I think one of the things that I've tackled in an article, I think it would come out in August or end of August or September
Mhm.
something. So I've talked about the model of careful feminism, right? A very careful feminism that is portrayed in the popular digest storytelling, right? So that storytelling, but then the narrative that they are building is that women can be free, women can have, hope and everything, but it should be very carefully there, right?
Yeah.
So that for societies like us, the only thing that can work would be that careful model, right?
Mhm.
That is going to give some hope. Like you can have a very pretty, the idea of a very beautiful female entrepreneur in the middle of a very, in the middle, running her own business in the middle of a road, which is like frequented by all the truck drivers and everything, right?
Yeah.
And in a very, very beautiful surrounding in a beautiful area. Like you would have the narrative, as you are talking about the narrative that, y- and it's not exactly a narrative. You do have stories like you have, I think it's Zenith Irfan. She has traveled the northern areas on alone on her motorbike,
Mhm.
right? I don't know if her brother was with her, but she has traveled. So there was a movie made on her um, achievements and her journey as well. So you do have stories like the story of Zenith Irfan, right?
Yeah.
So women have progressed, they have struggled against patriarchy, they have made a space for themselves in a very, very dangerous world. So I think that it's not something which is like so out of place, so surreal, right? And if we can have ghost stories, if we can have sci-fi and horror, we can also have hope for women.
Yeah. And I think my kind of ending note on just like this whole conversation is like, it really is important for even like the men and the boys to like be aware. Like boys need good role models. This is a friend of mine over here who says that is like the impact of a good male role model can completely radicalize a boy, a guy. Um and it just, I wish there was more of that. There's some influencers in like recent times where I've seen like Pakistani boys, like they're in their early 20s and they're in high school and they're making good content and they're saying good things and
Yeah.
they have platforms and they're using it to raise more awareness of like how women should be treated, which is bare minimum, but good job. A for
Bare
effort.
minimum, but there.
Yeah.
Again, there's always a hope. Fantasy, it's always I mean, you have a whole lot of literature
Yeah.
telling you that it's so important for your identity, for yourself, for your mental health, and for so many other things. I would recommend one book if you would like to look at storytelling specifically for women. There's this book by Kiran Nazir Ahmed, and it's Stories with Oil Stains. So she has talked about in detail the whole genre world of, which is a term I've borrowed from theorization on popular romance fiction. So it's like the genre world of Urdu popular romance fiction. How the digest writers are women. Women are working in publishing houses who are responsible for the circulation of these magazines, and it is the largest monetarily successful publishing model in Pakistan right now. And she has actually why I'm specifically recommending this in relationship with your project. She has interviews with women, detailed interviews, female writers and readers, right? So it's very much there. So I have written an article, and one other chapter will be coming out on Urdu popular romance fiction, and I do hope to publish something about gender and sexuality and its relationship to the retail spaces of popular romance, Anglophone popular romance, and Urdu popular romance. So I'm trying to
Yeah.
work on that. So I had telephonic interviews. So the first interview was always very cautious, right?
Right.
Nobody talked about what they wanted to read and whether even if they were reading Urdu popular romance fiction, because they were like, no, we are not interested in romance. We are just interested in them as good moral stories, and they have moral lessons and everything, right? And it was only on the third call that they started talking about, their favorite heroes.
Yeah.
And then they really, really liked the fact that they can talk about their favorite heroes, because um, one of the readers was saying that, it's like mm, her mother always stopped her from talking about the fictional heroes too, because even if they are fictional, they are still um, na-mehram men,
Oh my
right?
God.
Men who are not related to
Yeah.
her by either by blood
Yeah.
or by matrimony, right? So she was told by her women mother not to talk about non-mera men, and I was like, they are purely fictional toxic men
Yeah.
mostly, but yes, but of course I respected that, and
Yeah. Part.
I encouraged, not encouraged, but I was like, yes, it's perfectly fine
Yeah. This kind
as
of
long as she is letting you read.
it's reminding me of even the very like bare minimum of having a standard of being like, I'm not just gonna accept anything. Like it needs to match, like physically, there needs to be something. There needs to be an attraction. You can't just marry.
You're supposed to actually marry somebody who fits your family, because
Right.
in Pakistan, as somebody was saying, that it's not a matrimony over here.
Yeah.
It's not between two people.
Yeah.
It's between two families.
Right.
So the families, they look at each other and they establish the rubrics of their compatibility.
Mhm.
It's not about the individuals.
But and even in that, the women are just like they're supposed to be grateful that anyone has extended the proposal as opposed to being selective. And that very art of being selective, or not art, sorry, the very like action of being selective is like the response that you get is like, oh, if you have that much standards, no one's gonna pick you.
Oh, I think that it has changed for it is different in some cases, right?
Some
In some
kids.
cases, women, young girls, they do have the autonomy and they do select, not select, they do have the autonomy because they do have the privilege, right?
Right.
So if a young girl is very beautiful and her entire purpose of life has been, you know, taking care of her beauty and taking care of her manners and taking care of being the perfect daughter-in-law, right? Then I know um girls who are very sure of themselves and of their market value, right?
Okay.
So in those cases, it's not like they do not consider it a blessing. They keep on, uh, they know exactly what they are expecting,
That's interesting.
because they know that they have built themselves up for the marriage market, right? Their entire so I because I before coming to this public university, I taught at private colleges, private all women colleges. So those all girls colleges, etc. They had like really, really so many of my students. They were extremely well put together, and they knew um, the art of grooming. So they were trained in the art of grooming, even when they were educated, like they were being educated
Yeah.
in a normal university, etc. But the real education was their art of grooming, how you are going to serve tea, what type of things you're using, the kind of mannerism that you're going to bring to the table, the kind of cooking skills that you should have, the kind of managing skills you should have, the kind of dresses you're going to wear, and when. So it's like you have a whole different wardrobe for your honeymoon. You have a whole different setup for your destination weddings, and then all the functions that are I mean, those functions were a must, right?
Right.
So it's like we have so many pre-wedding festivities. Pre-wedding festivities, they are an art form, right?
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
very interesting because I've never heard that. Like I'm kind of aware of it, but the more common thing for me in my experience has been like the like nakhre, like itne nakhre kiye to
No, no,
kuch bhi
no.
nahi milega.
No, it's like no. It's like if you're so it's like if you think of it in very consumerist terms, I don't want to go all consumerist feminist, because it would like gloss over all the glamour and gloss over the fact that how female identities are so inextricably linked to grooming and being the good girl, being the good daughter, and being the good daughter-in-law. But yes,
Yeah.
if a product is being made for the one particular market, right?
Yeah.
So it's just like somebody is going to be very aware that if you would talk to a shopkeeper, right,
Yeah.
he would know that this is the best, the gem piece, right? So the gems of first water, whatever, like uh, a phrase straight out of Regency historical popular romances. I think it's diamond of fresh waters or first water, something,
Yeah.
right? So those diamonds, they do know their value because
Yeah.
they are very aware of what is going on in the market, and mostly because of their own influential family background.
So I was wondering, like, we can keep this short then because we've been in detail.
Mm.
But again, because you probably have a lot more information on just like literature and scholarship, I was wondering, if there's like a theoretical or literary framework that you like looking at storytelling and like storytelling in South Asia through, or if you would like suggest someone else to work on something that you've just been curious about.
I would love to have a model based upon the storytelling that is going on in different communities. And I think if you are going to, so in Pakistan, the social-cultural divide is so prominent, right? So if you're going to look into the narratives of the communities, if some scholar like you is going to look at the narratives in different communities built along the socioeconomic and cultural capital, right? Using any, let's say, Bordeauxian model or anything like that, right? So I think it would be very, very informative, and that model can be used for to explore future research on the production of literature.
Well, that was great. Well, thank you so much.
Thank
For
you so much
for
for this opportunity and I think this is important. When I collected data from women, whenever I've talked to them, at the end of every interview, at the end of every recording, every woman, whether it was a group, it was a focus group, or it was an individual interview, or it was just a telephonic conversation, everyone was like, we are so happy that we have talked about it. We have talked, right? And that I think is the significance of storytelling. Voices of women
yeah,
who are not, which are not heard ever, most of the time.
yeah.
Again, listens to women in daily life.